Hey now, as Christian would say, welcome back to the Uneeda Horror Podcast. This is Nick. I am coming at you today with always Christian Hannah Horror. How you doing, my friend?
I'm here. I'm doing good. I'm freshly showered, so Dave's not smelling me right now. I feel good, dude. It's actually a nice day in Louisiana for once. Just had some rain, so I'm old because I'm talking about we just had rain. Welcome to the 30s, but I'm good, dude. I'm good, and we've got a fantastic guest with us today.
Yeah, I was like, and don't let me forget the magnificent, in my opinion, I've been watching him for years, Dave McRae. Dave, thank you for coming onto the podcast. How are you, my friend?
No problem. Thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate the flattery.
Yeah,
I just turned 43 yesterday, so any flattery I can get, I will take. So no, but this is great. This is great. Sorry?
Yeah, I said you look better than me, dude.
Well, you know, it's
you must drink a lot of water.
When I do these shows, I do. That is true. That is true. No, I am relatively healthy. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs or you know, eat poorly. I run. I've been running since I was 16. And I just shaved today too, so maybe that's why.
All right, so Dave, listen to me real quick. This is getting off the rails. Just give me a second, Nick. Dave, listen to me, dude. I run. I lost a ton of weight in my teens. Granted, I was getting older. I was losing baby fat, but I transformed myself, man. I was a heavy set kid.
Good for
you.
you.
To this day, I run 5 miles, about 5 miles a day, 4 to 5 times a week. My diet, Dave, I started doing HelloFresh, so I'm eating these nice just pork chops and asparagus and stuff like that. My problem, Dave, is sometimes late at night I can't help myself. I think what is your day? What is your daily? Because I could tell you're a fit dude. I mean, you look great. You know, like I said, you really do look better. What is your thing, dude? What is your daily meal plan? What do you do?
Well, when I was younger, when I was in high school and college, I was very fit. I was ripped. I had a 6-pack and I had about 15.5-inch arms, which is not very big if you're 6'2", but if you're 5'8" like me, that's pretty good. And you know, I played 13 years of ice hockey, and so I was on a bit of a regiment there as well. Now, you know, being in your 40s, I mean, I'm not really sort of, you know, doing it for, I mean, I'm not playing hockey anymore, although I'd love to. So I'm not training as vigorously as I did, say, 25 years ago, where I'd be having, you know, lots of protein and having sort of, you know, all kinds of stuff. But, you know, I just watch what I eat, right? I'm a firm believer that it is not what you eat, it is how much of what you eat. And it's all about portions. It sounds like an overused cliche, but it's true. And if you want to have that bag of chips, have that bag of chips, but you can't have a bag of chips every day. You know, that's just the reality of what it is. So for me, an average day for me, I'd get up in the morning, I'd have, you know, maybe 2 slices of toast, some peanut butter and a banana and a glass of orange juice, you know, and then in the afternoon, I might have, you know, I'll take a can of salmon, mix it with some mayonnaise, put it in a bowl, and just eat it like that. Really great stuff. Don't have the bread because I had the bread in the morning with the toast, right? And then I'll have some water or maybe some juice, just, you know, small kind of thing. And then if I want a snack, maybe a few almonds or something like that, some raisins maybe, mix the almonds and the raisins in the palm of your hand, great snack. And then for dinner, you know, I'm having, you know, I'll have, maybe I'll cook up a burger, don't have the bun. If I want to have the bun, I skip the toast and I wait for the bread at night. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I'll have a burger and then I'll have like maybe some cheese on the side and a pickle and a nice salad or something like that. And it's not like I eat that is just me all the time. But what's great is that when you do eat like that on a regular basis and you lose some weight, because I was just saying on my own channel that, again, I'm only 5'8", but I had weighed myself about 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, I guess it was. No, it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago? I don't know. They're bleeding into each other. But I stood on the scale and I saw 157. And I haven't seen 157 since I was like in high school. My high school weight was 155, but I was cut. You know what I mean? And I was like, 157? Holy crap. Most of my adult life has been around 167, 165, which isn't big, you know, for 5'8", but because I'm only 5'8", losing 12 pounds is more noticeable than if you're 6'2" and 240 pounds and you lose 12 pounds, right?
Right.
So, so I was like, wow, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And because I want to get back to 155. I was like, that'd be great. High school weight at 43, that's amazing. But the great thing is that when you do that, when you are pretty consistent and you don't cheat too often, it affords you the luxury to cheat when you have to cheat. I got a barbecue coming up. It's somebody's birthday coming up. They're going to have cake. They're going to have chips. The Super Bowl's coming up, right? The Stanley Cup's coming up. Going to have a party. Going to go. It affords you to do that, you know, because you're like, hey, I can do that, you know, because I've been so disciplined there on in. And that's what I was like in high school and in college. And that's kind of how I've been in my head now for the last few months, ever since I noticed that I was kind of pushing my 5K to 7K, which I think is about 4 something miles, almost 5 miles, or yeah, 4.5 miles, maybe something like that. But that's it, man. Just watching what you eat, watching what you eat.
Yeah, see, I'm so jealous of Nick. Nick's really close to my age, so it's not like Nick's a baby or anything. But I just hit 30, and Dave, I'm telling you, my metabolism is gone. I really noticed it in the last year, man. And I'm just
well,
like,
keep in mind, if you're eating after 7 or 8 at night, and you know, I think what it is too is that we'd be surprised how many calories are in shit. You'd be surprised how many, you know, you think you're just having a little snack, but if you were to actually calorie count, and you don't want to get obsessive over it because then it just becomes obsessive and, you know, it's eating is no longer fun. But if you pay close attention to the snack you're having, you'd be surprised to go, holy shit, there's 300 calories in that? You've just added 300 calories to your day at 9 o'clock at night, and then you're going to bed. You know what I mean? Then it just sits there.
And your body's going to use it as fat because it has no use for it. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. So snacking is big. Snacking is big. If you can limit your snacking, you'd be surprised how much weight comes off.
Well, Christian, I wouldn't be too jealous of me.
No, you look good though. You look great.
Yeah, but see, the thing is like my wife tells me all the time as well. She's like, you're very lucky with your metabolism. And it just kind of runs in my family. You know, I'm 27, I'll be 28 later this year. So I know very soon this is going to start to slow down. But as of right now, it hasn't. Right. So, you know, but I'm 175. I've been one, but I'm 6'4".
Yeah, we're about the same.
You know,
about the same weight. That's where I'm at. I want to be Dave's weight. I'm 5'11". I'm right under 6 foot. If I stand up really straight, I'm 6 foot. Right. I want to get down to 160, something like that, man.
You can do it.
But you know, Dave, it's like I can run, brother. I'm telling you, I can run, and I love it. You're probably just like me, man. You put that podcast on or that album, you go and you get that runner's high. I still get it. I just gotta get the diet situated.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised that at the end of the day, exercise is important, of course, especially for losing weight. If you want to lose weight, exercise, cardio is important. But you can lose a lot of weight with not exercising and just changing your diet. So you'd be surprised on how much of it is what you put into your, you know, into your body. So if you are exercising, that's great. But if you're countering that with high calories, especially after 8 or 9 at night, it defeats the purpose, right? It's like going for a run, working out, and then going to KFC. It's like, you know, you can't, what are you doing? Unless you've lost so much weight and everything's great, then you can afford to do that once in a while because you're on the other end. You know what I mean? And it's not like you're going to gain 30 pounds by doing that once. But a lot of people tend to do that, you know, oh, I'm great, I've worked out, let's go to Burger King. It's like, no, you can't do that. Yeah, you haven't earned that yet, you know?
Well, all right, I'm gonna give this back to Nick. I'm sorry, Nick, but like honestly, I needed this right now. I just needed to talk to somebody because I know everything Dave's saying. I'm a smart guy. I know what he's saying, but it's good to hear. It's good to hear and see it from somebody and say, you just got to do it, brother. So yeah. All right, Nick, take it back.
Just got to do it. Consistency.
No, yeah, you're fine, Christian. It's not often you know, at least in our experience, that we've gotten to talk to Dave. So, you know, when you get a chance,
that's okay.
Why the hell not? Yeah, that's
okay. And if you want to cut this up in its own separate health and wellness podcast, you can do that. That's
the problem.
That's good too.
It's like I watch your channel. I've been seeing your videos, so it's like I don't know you, but I feel like I do. I feel like I can ask you this stuff.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm a personable guy. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Well,
one of the greatest things to what you just mentioned, Christian, one of the things about Dave in his channel that over the years I've always noticed is he is very much himself in his videos. And unapologetically so, and he makes points to say that all the time, whether it's his impressions, whether it's him, you know, just kind of really letting his your freak flag fly. Like, it's just kind of like, dude, this is me. Like, if you guys if it resonates with you, that's fantastic. If it doesn't, I don't give a shit. Like, and I think that is, so the authenticity definitely bleeds through to where when we sit here and talk to him, I feel like we can just have intelligent conversation. We could also just bullshit. It doesn't really matter. I just feel like I've got a sense for you. Am I right, Dave? Am I wrong?
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. For sure. You know,
bullshit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there you go. No, I mean, you know, I've always said that I mean, I've had my YouTube channel since 2006, but I never started using it and putting my face out there in the ways that I have now since about 2017. And it was my girlfriend, my wife, essentially, because we've been together for so long, who pushed me to do that and to really, you know, put me out there and do that. Because in 2016 or 17, it was announced that Blumhouse was going to be doing another Halloween film. And I believe it was in 2016, maybe 2017, somewhere in and around there, it was announced that John Carpenter was coming back to executive produce and do the music and blah, blah, blah. And I needed to vent. I needed to vent about this and talk about it. And so I just used YouTube. I wasn't doing it to gain subscribers or subs or anything like that. I did it to sort of like a virtual or a video diary, a vlog, so to speak, just to kind of get it off my chest, get what I needed to say out there and let the chips fall where they may. If people watch, great. If they don't, well, it doesn't really matter to me because I've gotten it out of me. And now it's sort of, you know, down on paper and it's great. But people started to watch and people started to tune in because I started to do videos that I think were analyzing not that people haven't analyzed the original Halloween before, but I was bringing a bit of, you know, I was bringing my personality to it. I was bringing some fun to it, the theatrics to it, right? Being, you know, loud and crazy but still delivering really, you know, at least what I think was good information. And it seemed to sort of catch on and then, you know, the rest is history and it's become a really sort of interesting side hobby. It's been fun.
More on that later.
Yeah, we'll get there. I want to say, you know, what you say whenever you talk about Halloween, Dave, as you can see behind me, I'm very unfamiliar with that franchise. I don't even know anything, you know.
I can see that. What the hell?
It's funny because there is a group of YouTubers that, you know, and I've heard you talk about it, I've heard Lee talk about it, where people will refer to you as a Halloween guy. And it's like, it's almost like most times it's a term of like endearment but a lot of times, not a lot of times, but sometimes it's the term of like, oh, it's a Halloween guy. I can't say certain things to this guy because he's a Halloween guy.
Right.
But Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, at least the impression I've gotten over the years with you is there's only a few movies in this franchise that you really hold pretty near and dear. And there's a lot of them you think are just kind of like, yeah, I could totally do without that. I mean, the thing I think of is when you did that short, I believe it was a short, or it was just a short video of like how you felt about each Halloween movie by saying the title. And that should tell you exactly.
I saw that.
Did you see that, Chris?
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, I mean,
yeah.
So as a whole, right, it's really the first one and Halloween 2 to a degree as well. And then everything else is just kind of like there's a couple that are but most of it's just I could do without the rest of it.
Yes, that's true. And I've made no apologies for it. I think, but at the same time, I think one of the things that has, you know, I like to have fun, and I'm a very theatrical person. I'm an actor. That's who I am. I'm a voice actor. That's my day-to-day job. I've been in the entertainment industry for 21 years, and I was doing that long before I was on YouTube. I was doing that before YouTube existed. So I just bring who I am to YouTube. I'm not doing this because I'm on YouTube. That's who I am. I mean, you know, it's not like I'm loud and, you know, like that all the time. You can't be like that all the time or there's no credibility. But in terms of the theatrics and being on camera and having fun and the voices and things like that, you know, I oversell it for the sake of entertainment. So, you know, I often say I'm not a big fan of Halloween 5. I don't like that movie. So I could say something like, I just don't like I just don't like it. I'm not a fan of the movie. Or I could say it's dog shit. It's absolute dog shit. I could go there.
I prefer
and
that.
Right. And so some people don't, right? It depends. Hey, we all have different personalities. We all have different people we gravitate towards. And, you know, sometimes that's too much for somebody. And I totally understand that. It's too much. He's loud. This is too much. I'm going to go watch somebody else. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's just that's the actor in me, right? That's the performer in me. And Dave, you know, I can't not do it. I mean, I'm on camera, right? And I exert so much energy. And when the camera goes off and the microphone goes off, it's like, and I'm quiet and I go out and I have a sandwich and I sit down and I play with my cat. And, you know, I mean, it's a performance really at the end of the day. Not that I'm not being truthful, but it's a performance. So yes, it's true. What you're saying is absolutely true. But for the movies that I don't like, I definitely oversell it for the sake of entertainment, because I think that's just more fun to watch.
I think Dave's line is that I always think of is it's dog shit. Exactly how he says it too. Like that
right.
It's just
dog shit. That's
yes.
right.
And, you know, we had viewers when we announced that we were going to be having you on. So many people were in the comments like, oh, Nick, can't wait to hear you talk about Halloween 5 with Dave. And it's like, to the listeners, we're not going to talk about Halloween 5 extensively because people know Dave isn't a big fan. I am a big fan, but I will never objectively say it's an objectively good film.
Don't be scared of Dave. What is Dave going to do?
No.
Tell Dave it's a great fucking movie.
I have a blast with it, but I said it on our commentary, Christian. Objectively, I can't look someone in the face and say this is a fucking masterpiece.
I think it's a masterpiece.
I think it's, and I sincerely mean this, I think it's great that you love the movie because, you know, it adds so much character and sort of adds so much color to having the debate or talking about it or the community. I mean, you know, if everybody agrees that this, and there's some films out there that are like that, if everybody agrees that something is, you know, dog shit or something's not very good, then that movie just sort of wastes away into obscurity because there isn't a debate about it. There isn't a general consensus about it. Now, generally speaking, there's a general consensus that 5 is not well liked, but it does have its fans, like you right there. Halloween Resurrection, another one I think is dog shit, has its fans, right? But I think it's, there you go. I think it's always fun though, when somebody says, that they like it. And I think one of the things that I've been met with too, and it's understandable. I've often said it's understandable. I've been accused of being, you know, arrogant, condescending, pretentious, all those things. I think it's just, you know, when you tune into somebody or when you watch somebody, you really want, you know, and there's nothing wrong with this. We want people we really like to like the things we like too, right? You know, it makes us feel connected. It makes us feel part of a community. Right. And there's nothing worse than when somebody you really admire or look up to or whatever the case is. And it doesn't have to be on YouTube. It can be your best friend. It can be a teacher. It can be your mom or dad. When you find out that somebody you either look up to or watch all the time or who you really like not just doesn't like a movie you adore, but loathes it, and then spends like 15 minutes talking about how much garbage it is, that can be really hard for some people. You know, it's like, oh, I like this guy and he's talking, oh my God, he's being so, oh my God, I can't, you know, and it can be really hard. And I know I've turned off a lot of people because of that, but you know, I mean, it is what it is. You know, you can't please everybody.
You've got to be you, you know.
That's right. That's right.
To anybody that isn't familiar with Dave, I know probably a lot of you guys are, but Dave got into the game. I want to get this right. So I believe you've talked about your dad a lot before and how he was, you know, I believe, was he a journalist in Canada? Very
yes,
well
he was.
One. Yeah,
he was. Yeah, he was a journalist and a columnist. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so yeah, and then Dave came up, and did you start as voice acting or did you just go for acting and then, you know, over time go, voice acting is what I'd rather do?
No, so as I've often said on my own channel, I grew up in a media family. And so, you know, growing up with my dad, who was a terrific writer, he passed away 12 years ago. No, 11 years ago. But he was the kind of writer that you either loved or you didn't like. He could make you cry one day because of something he wrote that was just so amazing, and then he could piss you off the next day. He was one of those kinds of people. And so I got a real perspective of media and entertainment, and I met all sorts of celebrities and sports athletes and all that kind of stuff from a very young age. I never had an interest in pursuing journalism. My younger sister did, and she went to school for it. Her husband did as well, but I never did. But my dad was a very theatrical person, doing all the voices and all this kind of, he could do all those things. That's where I get it from, is my father, and very theatrical. And of course, my dad was on the radio as well and on TV as well. And so I come from that kind of a family, a very theatrical family, the kind of family that if you're sitting down for dinner at Christmas or Thanksgiving and you're shy, well, you're going to be left out in the cold. It's the kind of thing where everybody's talking over each other. You just got to jump in. You can't wait for your turn. You got to jump in. It's that kind of family, right? So very theatrical, very boisterous. And I was always into drama, and I was on the improv team in high school, and I loved movies. From a very young age, I loved movies. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be a director. Even though I loved the acting and performing and all that kind of stuff too, I just wanted to make movies. And myself and my friend Bruce, of course, when we were teenagers, we made a bunch of home movies that I still have on VHS somewhere. I got to digitize those because those would be fun to share. God, they're awful, but I mean, they'd be fun to share. And well, actually, you know what? They're not awful. I can't say that. They're not awful. You can certainly tell from a very young age that you got, that we knew what we were doing. They're home movies, but you can tell, well, that's a good shot, or, if I do say so myself. But so I knew that I wanted to pursue a career in the arts somewhere. And I went to film school in the late 90s. I went to college because that's what I wanted to do. I went to Niagara College in Welland, Ontario, Canada, about 25 minutes outside of Niagara Falls. And I took radio, television, and film. I did not graduate. I did 2 years and dropped out because the work for me was just too much. There was so much work, so many classes, because you don't just have your film, right? You got your English and your computers and your broadcast management, your broadcast journalism and your current event. There was just so much. Obviously, people graduate from the program, so it's not too much for some people, or for most people maybe, but for me, it was just too much. So I decided to drop out and decide to pursue my career from a different angle. And that's when I moved to Toronto to live with my mom and sort of get a part-time job and get going on the on-camera stuff. I was thought, I'm going to give a crack at the on-camera stuff to be an actor. And that's what I did. So this is about 2001. So that's when I first entered the entertainment industry. That's where I look at my first sort of professional venture into the world. Got a professional agent, and I started going on auditions, and I did some commercials and some docudramas. And and then in about 2003, was it? 3 or 4, only a couple of years later, I broke my tooth playing road hockey. Street hockey for my American friends. Wow. It's such a Canadian thing. And so long story short, obviously I couldn't do any on-camera auditions because, I got a hole in my face and I got to unless it was for hockey maybe, but so I had to put the on-camera aside until I got my teeth fixed. And in that time, my agent said, well, why don't I put you on some voiceover auditions? I loved voiceover. When I was a kid, I did funny voices, recording myself into a tape recorder and playing it back and doing all sorts of crazy sound effects and stuff. So I said, yeah, of course. I had my own show on the college radio station. Not that that's voiceover, but that's a whole other thing. But I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I did. And I never looked back. And that was what propelled me into the world of professional voiceover and voice acting. It's acting, but it's behind a microphone.
Oh, no. And I definitely would never, ever, for anybody that isn't familiar with Dave's voice acting work, I watched the entire reel on IMDb, and I sent it to Christian on your IMDb page because I really wanted to hear kind of your range and whatnot. No, it takes some serious skill, I would imagine. And Dave, I've got to compliment you on this. There is some serious range to what you've got. You go from your the ghost hunters type promos where you're very like ominous and very like, oh, spooky. And then one of my favorite, I think my favorite one on the reel was the air hogs one. I mean, that one was insane.
Air hogs.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, that's Dave, like what? But then
me.
you're like, no, I can I can hear that. Yeah.
I have to, you know what, that reel on IMDb I have to update, because that actually I think is from, I don't know, that reel might be 5 or 6 years old now. It would be great to update that and add to it or refresh it. So yeah, I should probably, I forgot there was a reel on there.
Yeah.
I forgot there's a reel on IMDb. I think Big Hero 6 is on there too. And
yes.
I think, yeah.
Yep. And Christian, I was going to throw this to you because Christian, anytime we've had anybody that has worked in the industry on here before, Christian's very like curious about certain inner workings of the industry. Christian, hearing like Dave talk and hearing out like how he came up and what he's doing right now, is there anything like that popped in your head that you're like, man, I'm really curious about this?
Yeah, I'm just like I'm wondering like with voice acting, is that something you can learn? I have no idea how voice acting works, obviously, besides being something you're not with your voice, but like how does this work? Is this something you have to train your body to do? Is there any kind of physicality with like the diaphragm and stuff when doing different? I have no idea. I've never talked to a voice actor before. So this is all so new to me.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yes and no. So, you know, when it comes to voiceover, one of the biggest things that people have to learn if you're starting out, one of the biggest misconceptions about voiceover is that it has everything to do with the sound of your voice. It has very little to do with the sound of your voice. Now, that's not to say that having a deep voice or a sexy voice or a nice voice or a radio voice may not help in one particular area, perhaps. But there are voice actors out there right now who have great voices, who are struggling to make any kind of career out of it. And at the same time, there are voice actors out there right now who have seemingly average voices who are hugely successful. And the reason for that discrepancy is because this is about your acting and performing abilities. Now, when it comes to voiceover, obviously where you're really going to notice the acting and performing is in the world of animation. But even if you're doing network promos or movie trailers or, you know, TV narration, radio and television commercials, you're always, in my opinion anyway, playing some sort of fictional version of yourself. So understanding how to interpret copy, understanding how to make the read conversational so it sounds like you're not reading from a script, you're just thinking the words, you know, as they come to you, like you're just having a conversation like this, those tiny nuances and, you know, idiosyncrasies and things like that, how to take direction. That takes years of practice. Is it something that can be learned? It can, but as I often say, you can teach technique, but you can't teach talent. You either have it or you don't. And that's not, you know, it's a reality of the entertainment business and the entertainment industry. If you are a born performer, naturally, you know, gifted in that area, then you will already be a step ahead of those who are more shy, more reserved, more timid, but maybe have an interest in, you know, trying it out or what have you. So it's a tough reality because it sounds like I'm saying that it's not everybody can achieve it, but that's exactly what I'm saying. Not everybody can. It's the entertainment industry. You are hired based on how good you are. Right. And so yes, if you have a natural gift for it, then absolutely. And with animation, it's not about just doing funny voices. It's about creating characters. And so, you know, I can go like, hey, what's going on? And have like a, you know, an old man voice. And that's something I've perfected for years. All right. But what does he sound like when he's sad? What does he sound like when he's laughing? What does he sound like when he's angry? You know, who is he? What are his fears? What does he look like? You know, anybody can do a funny voice, but it's really about creating characters when it comes to animation. So, yeah, it's difficult. There's a lot to learn. I always tell people that if you're interested in pursuing voiceover, you have to first figure out, do you want to dabble in it as a hobby or do you want to pursue it as a career? Because those are two completely different set of scenarios that you're going to be two completely different paths. If you want to pursue it as a career and play with the big boys, well, you know, now we're talking show business. But if you want to just dabble in it and do your friend's podcast or your neighbor's, you know, birthday card or whatever, or get paid for it because you did a little local, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. That might be the path of least resistance. But if you want to pursue it professionally, the things I've talked about here in terms of it's not about your voice, it's about your acting and performing abilities. If you've never taken an acting class, take an acting class. Learn the art of acting. Even if you're pursuing voiceover, take an improv class. You know, maybe those are the first things that you should take before you make the leap into a voiceover class or a voiceover workshop. Don't worry about agents and managers and demos if you've never done voiceover in your life. That comes last. I've had people say, how do I get an agent? I'm like, do you have a demo? No. Well, then don't worry about it. Because the first thing, you know, an agent's going to ask you is, do you have a demo? Because the voiceover demo is the voice acting equivalent of an on-camera actor's headshot, you know, so there's no point, you know, and a demo is just, if you don't got the training, if you don't like the sound of your own voice when you hear it played back to you, the last thing you need to worry about is demos. And so there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of, in terms of like, you know, the diaphragm and all that kind of stuff, I've never had to worry about that stuff. I just go in and do my thing. But that's just because I naturally have that gift, but also because I've been doing it for so many years.
How long did it take you before? Because you come across like you're a confident guy and you're good at what you do, and it's clear. I've listened. Nick's right. Your stuff's great. How long did it take you where you said to yourself, "I've got this. I'm good at what I do. Give me the job, whatever it is. I'm going to do it."
In voiceover?
In voiceover.
Well, I always knew that I was good at it. I think I had a lot of evidence for it. You know, when I was in high school, I did a lot of high school announcements and, you know, the trailer voice and all that kind of stuff, or I would host, you know, fashion shows, or I was, you know, I made the improv team without even auditioning. They just put me on the improv team because I was so good. So there was always a lot of evidence from my peers at a very young age that I had talent.
Right.
And they wanted to utilize that. So I knew, and of course, you know, you just know you're very good. It's instinctual a lot of the time. And you just know what you're good at, you know what you're not good at, which is very important as well. And, I don't know if there was ever a moment, you know, I don't think so. At least I can't think of anything off the top of my head. It's just very instinctual. You just feel it. You know, you feel and you know if you're good at something, you have confidence. It's not arrogance. It's you have confidence in your abilities. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that for anybody to have confidence in their abilities. You can make it arrogant, of course, but if you're confident, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And like I said, I knew where my strengths were and I knew where my strengths weren't. Like, for example, as I've often said on my own channel, one of my areas of weakness, per se, when it comes to voiceover would be doing authentic foreign accents. So if I was hired to, you know, really play like somebody who sounded like they were from Paris or sounded like they were from, you know, I don't know, England or you know, a Yorkshire accent or, you know, whatever. I can do characters where it sounds like that's an accent. That's somebody who's foreign. But it's because the pressure's off and it doesn't have to sound exact in terms of the dialect and the emphasis and things like that. So authentic accents is something that I just never really sort of gravitated towards because I much preferred doing funny characters. So it's just about knowing what you're good at, what you're not, and being confident in your skill set.
Nice.
Yeah, and as Dave said, you know, there's obviously a difference between arrogance and confidence in anything that you do, guys, and it does not make somebody arrogant that they are confident in what they do. And so
right.
No shaming of that. People need to pat themselves in the back every now and then. We need more of that. Like, hey, I'm not a piece of shit. Like, right. It's nice for us to do that. So,
yeah.
But there's a few things I wanted to cover with you this evening, Dave, and the first one we got to cover, and it's the lead up to Halloween 2018. Okay. You said that's what really jump started you putting yourself out there on your channel. And you got to know that you were in a very enviable position to be able to go to that world premiere. You know, a lot of Halloween fans were like, "This son of a bitch! Like Dave's gonna know all this stuff for a month, and he's not gonna."
The 2018 film, you mean?
Yes, the
Yeah.
film. And we knew, and I was one of those people that was like, "Damn it! Like this guy's gonna see it, he's gonna know, and he's not gonna tell us."
I'm gonna know, baby.
I'm gonna know. I'm telling you, Christian, he comes out and he does this super vague tweet afterward. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was very vague about his general thoughts on the movie, and basically ended it with, "I'll talk more about it basically when I can." It was like just enough to get you to go like, I kind of get a read on how he felt, but more or less just like, "I'm not telling you guys shit." And I was like, damn it. So I want to know, because from my experience from watching you, I watched Halloween 2018. I was let down the first time I watched it. As time has gone on, I have settled with it. I think it's a very competently put together movie, but it just, there's just something that it lacks for me that I can't put it, top 3. Christian was someone that saw it, said, "This is the best thing since sliced bread." And then saw it a few more times, was like, "It's really not though." Dave, you were someone that was like, "Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's well made." But I feel like it was one of those movies for you too, that, do you feel like we as Halloween fans might have hyped ourselves up a little bit too much going into that movie? Do you feel like there was a little bit too much?
Are you kidding? Fans hyping themselves up
Especially
too much?
not Halloween fans, Dave.
No, I don't think that's ever happened in the history of cinema.
No.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to see it with Bruce at the world premiere at TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival, one of the most prestigious in the world. And we were able to get tickets and got very good seats. I think we were about, I don't know, 5 or 6. Well, there's a video on my channel where I cover the whole lead up and the evening, and we go out for dinner. Yeah. And I think we were, at the end of the video, you see I'm filming Curtis and Blum and Malik and everybody on the stage. I think we're only like 6 or 7 rows from the stage. It was really good seats. And so very excited. I mean, I'm a huge Halloween fan, my favorite horror movie of all time. I'm a fan of the original. When they said they were going, and I even, I like part 2, not as much as the first one, but I like part 2. I like that, package, the double bill there. And but when they said they were going to negate 2, I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. Well, if you do that, you negate the brother-sister story. Oh, okay, you go back to the original intent. And, well, this might be interesting. This should be interesting. Interesting experiment. Okay, I'm in. Let's do it. Yes, I didn't hate the movie, and I even said that in my review for it. I didn't hate it. It's competently made. The score is fantastic. I thought the performances were great. I thought James Jude Courtney just knocked it out of the park as Michael Myers in terms of his performance, the nuances of the walk, and the, what he did was great. But it didn't feel like a Halloween movie. And here's the problem with the Halloween series is, and it's the problem with any series when you continue to make sequels and sequels and sequels, it's inevitable that you will run into this. But it's specifically difficult with Halloween. When you say, I was very disappointed, because you could say, well, you didn't have your fanboy expectations met. And I guess from a certain point of view, that's true. I had expectations, but were they fanboy expectations? I don't know. I would like to consider myself a pretty astute person when it comes to film and the filmmaking process, as a filmmaker myself. And I would like to think that, I mean, listen, I'm not, I am totally privy to all the fanboy feelings, and I'm a fan, right? We're all fans. There's certain things we want to see, certain things we don't want to see. But when you say you're making a direct sequel to the original Halloween only, there's a lot of things that, as a filmmaker, because I just did a direct sequel to Black Christmas, there's a lot of things that I sit back and I go, okay, what do we need to do to make this feel like Black Christmas? like the connective tissue is there while still pushing the narrative forward. Now, in fairness, Billy is only the first half of a two-part story. So if it feels incomplete, that is because it is. But the principle of what I'm saying is the same. So when I watch Halloween 18, there was just certain things about how they, and listen, I understand why they did it this way. You know, it's 2018. It's not 1978 anymore, Dave. You know, you got to get over it. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do that. They're not going to, I get it. I understand it. They didn't even repeat it in 81. But the character of Michael is, there's certain character motivation, and I don't mean his motive, but character motivation in terms of how you write the character and what you have him do. And, you know, it feels, I just didn't get enough of that 1978 Michael Myers in the shadows, the lurking, the stalking. And just when there was a stalking scene that began, it quickly ended, you know, with this great piece of music. And we got one scene where he was, I think the best 1978 moment in 2018 was when he was in the backyard with Oscar, you know, and Oscar's kind of looking over at him and he's standing there and then he looks back and and then he's gone. And all of a sudden he's in front of him, you know, with the lights going on and off. And, you know, again, you don't want to just make the same movie over again. You want to push the narrative forward, but it's about understanding who and I'm not saying that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride don't. There's a lot of people that love the movie and it's competently made. There's some good things in that movie to like. There's definitely good things in that movie to like. But overall, I was like, I don't know. Like if I was writing the bathroom scene, for example, right, with Aaron and Dana, you know, I understand that they structured the story in a way where maybe that scene had to happen during the day. But if I was writing it, I would think, well, let's have this scene happen at night. Yep. Let's have it happen at night. You know, Dana and...
The biggest problem of that scene is that it is in the day. It is a
Correct.
super effective scene. And the fact that I think, and Christian, you and I have talked about this, seeing that moment in the theater for me the first time, I was like, this feels like real violence. Like this feels real. And I felt super bad for the characters. And I don't get that a lot in these movies because sometimes it's just over the top, but you're not able to shroud your monster when it's in broad daylight in a public bathroom. And I feel like also they did some things stylistically in that I wouldn't have done.
I agree.
Through slits in the doors to where you can get glimpses of his face. I'm just like, I don't need that. I don't want that. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, no, it's if you were to structure, you know, that would be my instinct, right? My instinct. That would be my instinctual sort of feeling if I was writing that scene. This has got to be at night because we can utilize all of the things that make Michael Myers Michael Myers. And yes, we're going to be able to do that later in the movie at night too. I get that. It's just a difference in creative decisions. You know, it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's just that when I think of going back to the original Michael Myers, and the last time we saw him was when he disappeared off the bat, and he's gone. You know, this is the Michael we're bringing in. And if you were to have that scene take place at night, the bathroom door could swing open. You could have just like this light above that's going, you know, whatever. And she's in there and she's alone and the door opens. I mean, it's at night. It's dimly lit. Utilizing that, it would have elevated the fear and the atmosphere, which is what Halloween is all about, to the 10th degree. I mean, it just would have been so emotionally satisfying. And then when he goes out to the car and opens the trunk and puts on the mask, I do like the shot. I like the creative decision to shoot through the back window, but it's during the day and it's broad daylight and you see all of him, which obviously was the intention. And we know what he looks like. There's no reason to hide him anymore. And fans can, and I get that. I understand that, but that's not what I would have done. Because the last time we saw him in that mask was at night in the dark. And I would have wanted to sort of remind people of that again. And when he puts on the mask, he closes the trunk, and maybe there's only one light from a street, you know, post lamp, you know, street post lamp, whatever the hell I'm trying to say, street light, you know, shining down upon his face, only on one side of his face. And the other side is maybe not complete blackness, but you don't really see it very well. And there he is looking through the back of the windshield. And it's like, oh, now that's the shape. You know, and it's little things like that. Are those fanboy expectations? Maybe it's semantics, maybe it depends on how you look at it. But I think about, to me, that's character continuity. Well, right? To me, those things are no-brainers when you're talking about Halloween.
To give a different perspective, Christian is a Nightmare guy. You know, Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy is his guy. And don't worry, I'm going to ask you about something Freddy related in a little bit. But Christian, you're the guy here that isn't, you know, a Halloween guy, as people would label us. So for you, what was it that gave you those? Yeah, right. What is it that gave you those reactions? You went from "this is amazing" to then, as time went on, like, like, what do you think it was about that movie for you?
I mean, when Dave was being a little sarcastic, like, "What do you?" Of course, they got too excited. What do you mean? And he's right. Like, it's like everybody did get way too overhyped. But I think Dave could kind of agree. I mean, it was kind of hard not to, dude.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
When I watch it now, if they were brother and sister, Dave, she's coming for him. That's her brother. She's gonna find her. She's gonna find her. He's gonna find her.
I will say that I do agree with the last part of that. I don't think the first part, that they made that decision just because they wanted to bring John Carpenter back on board and he wouldn't do it if they didn't do that. I think from a story perspective, it does make sense. Now, who knows what the hell they're going to do when Halloween ends, but I think it does make sense because, you know, if you have Halloween 2, and they've already done this, they did it with H2O. And they just ignored everything. They never found his body, you know, and that's sort of just a throwaway line. He's not burned. His, you know, his eyes are fine. I mean, you know, and we're just supposed to take it and, you know, shut up and sit down and eat your popcorn and, you know, don't ask any questions. But I don't think that was the case here. I think it was purely a logistical sort of thing when it comes to story, that we don't want to make another H2O. You know, we want to go back and do sort of a legacy sequel, which is what it really is, to the original Halloween, a tribute in some ways, pretending that 2 never happened. And when you do that, you're able to make him a man again, because he is a man. You know, he's a man with a supernatural element to him. There's something there that's not, you know, so you can go back to that, which is important, and you can get rid of the sister arc, which tends to, you know, cause a lot of issues. A lot of people like it because it's embedded into the pop culture zeitgeist. It's just how we have come to know it. I get it. I understand it. But it's not needed when you go back to the original Halloween. And I think ultimately it was a story decision, because Jason Blum has said many times that when he spoke to John Carpenter trying to get him back on board, one of the last things he said to him before he left his office was, "John, they're going to make this movie with you or without you." You know, so I think it was going to be made whether he was on board or not. But Jason said, you know, we really want you on board. You can do the music and, you know, money, 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 money. You know what I mean? So he was like, all right, let's do it. And it was an opportunity to work with his son and his godson, you know, do the music and all that kind of stuff. So I really think it was a story thing. But I agree with you that if you had Halloween 2 as canon, hypothetically, it does bode well more for the, and again, everybody is different. Who am I to say that you can't, you know, that can't experience that night and not be a basket case for the next, you know, 40 years. I mean, everybody is different. Everybody, I can believe it because I know that people respond to psychological trauma in many different ways, you know, and what could affect me and I could get over it, you know, in a year might not be the case with her. You know, we don't know what happened. We don't know if maybe she never got therapy. Her parents were not supportive. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can sort of fill in the gaps for ourselves and go, well, you know, maybe.
And I got to pose a question to both of you guys. Do you think that part of that also is that maybe somewhere deep down, as an actress, Jamie Lee Curtis struggles to separate herself sometimes from "I am not his sister"? Like, do you think there are ever times, like while they've been making these new movies, where it's like, on screen she comes across as so resentful and so traumatized by this shape, but in canon where we are now, the history is nowhere near as deep as it was 15 years ago when she'd been in multiple movies and they were supposed to be related. But do you think at times, she's a fantastic actress, but
she's great.
Yeah, it's not, you know, a knock on her ability, but do you think like mentally sometimes it is like it's just easier to get in that place when she thinks about it like, oh, it's Michael Myers again coming after me, you know what I mean? Like I feel like sometimes that does play a little bit into it of like
I think sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to ramble anyways.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, I think it has more to, I'm going to say the short answer, I'm going to say probably not. I think it's in the writing. But I think what happens is that because she has played Laurie Strode in several different iterations over the last 40 years, it's difficult for fans to separate. And that's what it comes down to, is that it's extremely difficult for fans to separate this Laurie that we're seeing, having not experienced all those things from part 2, H2O, Resurrection. You know, it's very difficult. That's why I often say when people want Danielle Harris to come back and play, you know, I don't care. She can play, you know, I don't care. She can be Jamie Lloyd, but it's not the same Jamie Lloyd. Yes, Danielle Harris could come back and play Jamie Lloyd, but 4 and 5 and 6 do not exist. So if she comes back and plays Jamie Lloyd, it would be an alternate reality Jamie Lloyd, and all those things that that character went through in 4, 5, and 6, which are the things you're emotionally attached to. When you think of the character, that's what you think of, do not exist. So that character you're watching on screen, the nostalgia comes from knowing that it's not just the same actor. The nostalgia comes from knowing that that character has had all those experiences, and you're seeing that character again. But it's not. Yeah. It's a different Jamie Lloyd. It's the same in name only. So I think, yes, I think a lot of this comes from the fans, and I think it's hard for the fans to separate. If there was never a Halloween 2, if there was never a Halloween H2O or a Resurrection, I think it would be easier to separate and maybe see this as a bit more believable for some fans.
Let me ask you this, Dave, and I think you were close to saying you were going to agree with me, but her performance with them not being related one night 40 years ago, I mean, Jesus Christ, it's a bit much.
Yeah, well, right? I mean, that's what I said.
I understand it's cinematic. I get what you're saying.
It's cinematic, but I don't think that's her. I think that's in the writing. You know, because she's being written to perform that way. If she's overselling it, then it's David Gordon Green's job to say, pull it back a bit, right?
She's not going to tell him that. You know what I mean? I think she's going to look at Jamie Lee like, I'm not going to tell this broad what to do.
Well, but that's the director's job. And if David Gordon Green is not going to do that, well, that's on him. That's your job. Your job is to direct actors. And, you know, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. You don't have to be a dick about it, but you just got to go in and say, hey, Jamie, loved it, really good. Can we dial it back just a little bit? You know, that's your job. You know, that's your job. It's your vision. And if the vision's not being met, well, then what the hell are you doing on set? But I think it's more from the fans. I think I agree with you. She really was traumatized, for sure. I do agree with that. And do I agree with, as a fan, it feels overdone because Halloween 2 doesn't exist? Yes, I agree with that. I do agree with that. I think her basket case, give up my life, spend 40 years waiting for him, would be easier to believe if Halloween 2 existed, because you have all this whole other movie with all these other murders and this direct sort of all these kills and, you know, the screaming and, you know, the parking lot and the hell coming on, all that shit happened to her. It just adds to the evidence of why she would be a basket case. So I do agree with that. But like I said, I mean, who knows? I mean, you know, is it impossible? Is it impossible for her to be that way after just part 1? It's not impossible, but it's a little more difficult to believe.
And this is where I'm coming from too, Dave. I hear everything you're saying. I agree with all of it. What I'm really aggravated about with this, I say aggravated. I sleep well at night. Trust me. I'm just sound aggravated because we're talking about this. Sure. I like these movies. I'm sick of Jamie Lee Curtis in these damn movies. I wanted that Halloween Returns where he was like, you know, coming out of prison or some crap. You know, it was going to be something new, Dave. I mean, I understand it. Me and Nick talked about this. Jamie Lee probably drove up that box office big time. You know,
she was part of it for sure. Yeah,
she was part of it, and it makes sense. They got to make money. I get it, but it's just like I can't. I'm a fan. It's like fun. When you bring that up, I took my mom to see it. She freaking loved it. She loved it. She don't.
So did mine.
She,
and she saw the original in theaters, and she loved it.
Yeah, so it's like that. And a lot of stuff you were talking about too earlier with like, shooting this at night, making Michael more ominous, come in slowly, quick images, sure, not quick images, but like you kind of see him, but you don't see him, but then you kind of see him. Do you think if they made the first movie again for a 2018 audience, would it work as well? Because no. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. And I think that's why the movie is and looks the way it does. Boom,
100%.
boom, 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 boom,
boom.
Oh,
100%.
Crap,
100%. But it's about balance, right? So, for example, when we did It's Me, Billy, we wanted to approach it from a perspective of, we wanted to make this feel like it's Black Christmas, like it's the next step in the story, and it feels like you're living in that world again. But it's about balance, right? Now, again, maybe it's not the best example because the story's not complete and we still have, this other thing that, it probably would make more sense when the whole thing's done. But the principle is the same, right? The thought process, it's about balance. So for example, actually a good example would be Billy. One of the criticisms from some people that we got with Billy was that, well, you guys showed him too much. Right? Because, well, what's showing too much? Well, I mean, showing his leg might be too much considering how little they showed him in the original. Yeah. So it really is sort of relative, I think, but fair enough. But the reason we never showed his face, right? We never showed his face. We never showed suddenly his face being revealed or anything like that. But that was one of the things that the struggles we had is that, well, we don't want to just, although some fans would like it, we're not doing a Black Christmas fan film that is just our own version of the first movie. We're doing a direct sequel. We're making a professional short independent film, with a professional cast and crew, and we're shooting on the Arri Alexa, and this thing's got to be, as the kids say today, lit. I don't know. Do they still say lit? I don't know. Off the chain.
I'm not trying to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say that he did achieve just that. Guys, if you have not checked out It's Me, Billy, I know a lot of people feel the same way, that this looks like a big budget, legitimate, like Hollywood, this shit came out of Silicon Valley type production.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You guys really do have the team you guys put together and what you guys did. Yes, that is quality filmmaking and storytelling.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you. No, that means a lot. And again, I don't say, again, for people who may not know me, I don't say that in a braggadocious way. I say that to give context of how serious we were taking it. Right. We were like, no, we gotta fucking this. But one of the things was, well, how do we do Billy? Because we're sitting there and we're thinking, well, we need to do something more because it's the sequel and you got to continue. How do you push a character like Billy forward and reveal more of him without revealing more of him and who he is? So we decided to show more of his physicality, right? In the rocking chair. In the first movie, you see him freak out. Well, you don't see him. You see through his point of view, him freak out in the attic. So you see his hands and things like that. Well, we could have done that again, but it's been done. So why don't we show him from the audience's perspective, freaking out. He's got long hair. Why does he have, long hair? Well, I can't imagine that he would run down the street to the barber and get a haircut. I mean, it's just more of a representation of the 50 years of mental cognitive decay. If he was like that in 1974, what is he like now? He's unkempt. He's got these ratty clothes, this long hair, which was the actor's real long hair, by the way. All these things. And so we decided to kind of show that. And then when he's carrying Sam down the hall and it's the physicality of it, but you never really see him. And so that doesn't mean people are going to like it. That's a creative decision we made, but it was intentional. There was thought behind it. We really talked about it. It's not, we didn't make arbitrary decisions. We really thought about, the character and the previous movie and the series and, what does this mean? What are we going to do? And that's what and not that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride didn't do that, but just some of the creative decisions they made, I just wouldn't have made. So it really is about, I forget, were we talking about something else? I forget now. There was
I don't know.
Question, I think.
It's all good.
I'm just going off. Well, let me give you another example while we're on 18. I've talked about this, before on my channel, but another thing that I think that I would have done a bit differently is Vicky's death scene, right? You've probably heard me
Yes.
talk about this before, but for your listeners who haven't, Vicky, now this isn't the fault of David Gordon Green, but obviously in the marketing, we know that Vicky is going to die. We know when she's going to die, and we know how she's going to die. So that's unfortunate. So immediately when you're introduced to that character, you're like, but that's out of his hands. You know, you have the character of Vicky go over to the closet. She tries to close it, and then she opens it, and there he is. Okay, that's one way of doing it for sure. But does it really utilize the character effectively? Oh, I know what we were talking about. We were talking about, would Halloween 78 work today? Right. So this kind of leads into what I'm saying. And what I would have done is I would have, instead of Julian asking to close the closet door, I would have written it asking him to turn on the closet light. Because kids, I know he's got a little night light in his room, but maybe he wants extra light, right? So she goes over, she opens the closet, and she tries to turn. Now you can have it two ways. You can have her turn on the light and boom, there he is. Or you can have her try to turn on the light and it doesn't work. So she turns around, she's like, Julian, do your parents have any light bulbs around? I think, and as she's having this conversation with him on the bed, you slowly start, I mean, it would depend on how deep the closet is, but hey, it's Michael Myers. You slowly start to see the mask emerge from behind her. You know, again, playing into Michael Myers. Not one is right or wrong, but it's just little things like that that I missed opportunities that I think are like, oh yeah, you can open the closet door and he's just there. But like, can't we noodle this a bit and kind of play with it a little bit and kind of build it up a little bit? It's just little things like that that I saw. I saw a lot of missed opportunities.
And Christian and I agree with this, and it's going to lead into the next thing is just like, I'm totally in lockstep with you. I think the three of us all agree is like, the problem with Halloween 2018 is that they spent 2 years telling us this shit is the continuation to the original. And then you watch it and you're like, Halloween 2 was a better continuation of the original than this one. So no, you did not keep your word on that. So whatever, regardless. But then 2 years later, I think it was 2 years because of COVID. Oh god, yeah, technically 2 years, but it came out 3 years.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Halloween Kills comes out. And for me personally, I had a much better time with the movie, and so did Christian. And for me, it was because this time they didn't try to sell me on that bullshit of we're making the continuation. They were like, okay, you're now playing in our sandbox and we're just going to give you whatever comes out of the sandbox. And to me, it was very fun. It was very upbeat. It was more like an action movie. And you know what? Michael Myers, for even all the detractors of that movie, they say Michael Myers is on one in that movie. As the kids say, that dude is turned up to like 12. So I loved that. Christian, for you, was that the same reason why you gravitate toward Kills more? Just because it was like, fuck it, let's stop trying to be beholden to Carpenter and let's just do our thing. Like,
yeah, I guess so. I mean, it was fun. I'm a gore guy, so like I don't really care to see the first movie done ever again. That's just me. I just want to be entertained for the most part, and especially after 18, I'm like, whatever. It was funny, you know, I was talking to somebody today. This movie kind of feels like a what's the phrase I'm looking for? Like a stopgap or something now, because not a whole lot really happens, and I'm assuming Dave, does this movie almost seem like Universal was like, hey, it made way too much money. I need 2 more. So whatever you wrote, stretch it out or something. Does it feel like that to you now?
It's filler. I think so. Yeah.
Almost
certainly Halloween 18, according to David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, they had, and again, you know, because we're not privy to the information, there might be some nuance that, you know, we're missing. But so the story goes, they were going to shoot, I don't know if it was going to be the Halloween Kills story necessarily, if it would have turned out like Halloween Kills, but they were going to shoot 2 movies at once. And they decided to not do that, kind of like what we did with Billy, I guess. Right. And they decided to just kind of, you know, do the first thing first. Obviously, they have way more on the line than we do with Billy. They're making money. So they thought, let's just do this and see how it goes. And then if it's really successful, we'll do more. It was very successful, highest grossing slasher in motion picture history, $254 or $5 million at the worldwide box office, huge opening of like 78 million or whatever. It's insane, absolutely insane. So obviously a sequel was inevitable. It didn't need a sequel, by the way. I mean, very few movies need sequels, but I felt it ended a bit abruptly, but it does feel like, okay, well, Michael's, okay, it's over. But nonetheless, of course, a sequel was inevitable. 2 sequels were coming, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends. Yeah, it does feel a little bit like filler. I am not a fan of this movie, although I think I gave the wrong impression when I first saw it. I was able to see it at a screening a few days before it was released to the public with Bruce. We went down here in Toronto and saw it. And I did have, I will say this, I enjoyed, and I've been very clear on this, at least I think I have, I enjoyed my experience of watching the movie more than I enjoyed my experience of watching 18. And I think it's because, to the point that you guys have been talking about, I think, you know, now that the cat's out of the bag, they've done their legacy sequel, right? Doing their best to try and do David Gordon Green, but also add a little Carpenter in there. And, you know, now he can, maybe the chains are off and he can kind of do his own thing. And with a title like Halloween Kills, I mean, you know, you're not going to get too much theater of the mind. So I was prepared for that. I was like, you know what? I just want to walk in. And I said this. I just want to walk in, treat it like an amusement park ride. Just go in, have some fun, you know, just whatever. It is what it is. I want to have some fun. And I did. I had a lot of fun. That doesn't mean that I thought the movie was good or that I thought the movie didn't have problems. But in my initial tweet and my initial video with Bruce, as we were walking back from the theater to Dundas Square, which is like Toronto's Times Square, not as big, but it's like that with all the lights and the billboards and all that kind of stuff. And we had said to each other, we said, so how do you want to do? Do you want to go to, you know, okay, you know what, I want to go back to the square and then we'll set up and we'll do a live stream. And okay, cool. And I was like, should we talk about all the kind of crappy things? You know, and he's like, nah, let's not, you know, we're not disappoint people. I mean, you know, it's opening in 2 days. Let's talk about the things we like. So that's why we talked about The Mask and we talked about some of the kills were kind of fun. And that's why you heard me say things like, I really enjoyed this experience. I enjoyed this. And I think it gave people, some people, not everybody, the wrong impression, because when I started to kind of dive into it, like really deeper, it looked like I was changing my mind or backtracking, which I wasn't doing at all. I just was now talking about all of it now that it's been released. So I think this movie has problems in the writing and structure. I think it's a very wonky film. I think the hospital stuff is strange. I think the overselling, there's a lot of overacting in this film, right from Andy Matichuk's what? You know, to, you know, Evil Dies Tonight, to, you know,
the ironing board lady, Pizza.
The ironing, there you go. How many times people say 40 years ago? It just feels, it feels like they're too self-aware that they're in a Halloween movie. Oh, but so Dave, there's like little boxes and checks and things. And I didn't particularly like, it's just the structure was off. It felt, it just was, the hospital stuff just did not land for me at all. And then we go off on this side excursion with this guy who, I don't know how you could mistaken him for Michael Myers. He looks like Danny DeVito, rest in peace. I know the actor, not Danny DeVito, but I know the actor who played him did die. So I don't mean any disrespect. I just mean that, you know, it's.
You look like Danny DeVito.
He did. It's kind of like, how do you, you know, but I get the social commentary that they were trying to implement about mob mentality and misinformation, but it's like, and I think this comes heavily from Jamie Lee Curtis because, and it's just my assumption because she's a very strong social activist for this kind of thing. It's just leave it out. Leave it out of it. It's a Halloween movie. I know horror movies have had social commentary since the get-go, but it's just not working here. At least it didn't. I don't know what sort of social commentary or what continued social commentary they're going to implement in Halloween Ends. I'm sure there will be some. I just hope it works better. So I wasn't a big fan of the movie. I thought it was a big step down. Now, the kills, Michael was great. The kills were great. It was a lot of fun. You know, again, not, you know, we're seeing a lot, but I get it. I totally get it. I understand it. I was prepared for it. It's 2021, you know, back then when we saw it, I get it, right? I'm not expecting, you know, I'm not going to bitch and complain because I get it. I understand it. I just want to have some fun. Just want to have some fun. So I enjoyed the kills. I thought the cinematography was great, and, you know, the fireman scene and all that. And I really liked the death scene of the couple.
Oh,
and and the reason for that is because it was a bit more nuanced. It slowed down a bit. So I love that the camera's placed beside her shoulder, and we're just watching Michael stab the guy like a pincushion, you know, and we're not cutting. We've slowed things down, and it's and he's out of focus, right? They don't rack focus, you know, to show him in focus. They just stay there as if we're her. It's not a POV shot, but it's kind of like we're her eyes and he's out of focus. And it's just really, really well done. So the Michael stuff is really good. Wasn't crazy on the humor that they tried to bring with Big John and Little John. It felt a little kind of out of place at times with me, although there were some cute moments there. But I think the best thing about the movie, of course, is the flashback. I think from a technical, logistical achievement, I think that was outstandingly done.
The flashback in the extended edition is even better because you get some extended stalking shots that I have no idea why they took out. One of my favorite scenes in the entire extended cut is when Lonnie sees him standing beside the bush and then he's gone, and Lonnie goes back there, and the score is so ominous and creepy. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, why would you cut this out of the movie?
I got a guess.
Why?
I have a guess. Because there's no other shit like that in this movie or the last one, so I have it now.
But that is the 78 type shit. That was a 78 moment.
That train's already left, baby.
It makes you wonder, and of course it's too late to go back and do this, although you never say never. Fast forward 5 years, but it makes you wonder.
Yeah, no kidding.
What would have happened at the box office if you had introduced not a direct sequel to Halloween 1. Well, yes, a direct sequel to Halloween 1, but well, I guess it is, but an alternate Halloween 2 set in 1978. And, you know, made it a period piece. And really sort of, instead of fast forwarding 40, now you'd have to recast, of course. Or what you could do is you could have it a mixture, right? You could have Laurie, as she is today, telling the story, you know, or something, or there's something I haven't told you. There's more. There's and maybe she says there's more to that night. There's more to the 78 night. What do you mean? Well, this is what happened. I thought you went to the hospital and did. No, this is what actually happened. And you could really play into that. And so you kind of tip your hat to Halloween 2, like they tried to do in 18, where it's like, I thought they were brother and sister. Now that's just some, you know, rumor people made up. But you could have Laurie be in control of it and have her say, people thought I went to the hospital that night, but I did, whatever, right? You could just have an alternate part 2 set in 1978 and then shoot it and make it look like the flashback. And of course, now that becomes very expensive because now it's a period piece. So you're not just shooting in front of the Myers house. Now everywhere's got to look like 1978. So it becomes a little more expensive, but I don't know.
That sounds great,
Blumhouse
dude.
has the money. I mean,
That sounds so. This is, you know, Dave. It's really, and I don't want to bitch anymore about it. It's not just the brother sister thing. How I feel she's a little too much with the movie. I've seen, even though I hadn't seen the movie yet. Like when I got done, it's like, dude, I've already seen this movie, despite the fact that it's 2018 and glossy. Now, what you just said, dude, that sounds so cool.
It'd be interesting.
I think one of the things about this is that I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think Halloween H2O did 2018 better in a sense of 2018 is a better movie overall structurally. I'll never argue that H2O because it's actually one of my least favorite in the series. But as far as Laurie Strode as a character and what this has done to her, and maybe that is because of the pop culture knowledge of brother sister and Halloween 2 being canon, but that just worked so much better for me that then we got 2018, I'm like, I've seen a lot of this movie already, and I feel like it's just less believable now than it was then.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand. I think I'm not a big fan of H2O. I don't hate it. I don't think it's the worst in the series by any stretch of the imagination.
That's Halloween 5, right? Just
5 and probably Resurrection. I mean, I dump on 5 a lot because it's fun, because I think more people like 5 than like Resurrection. So I always like to get people going, Dave. But
can you do that? What is the Halloween, when you read your comments? I'm sorry. What are the Halloween fans sound like to you when you read their shit? What's that Bart Simpson voice you were doing just now?
No, well, well, it's I don't usually get these kinds. It's usually messages. So I have a Facebook page, Many Things Dave McRae,
God.
and it's not my personal page. It's the page that is dedicated to my channel. And often I will not, and again, as I always say, like 95% of the people and messages are fantastic, right? I mean, it's not like I'm getting 10 of these a day. But every so often when I put up what could be perceived as a controversial video in the Halloween community, you know, like me dumping on Halloween 5, or, you know, pointing something out, whatever, you know, I will get several messages from people trying to correct me or tell me what a moron I am, or, you know, whatever. But it's usually, it's a DM to me. It's usually not in the comments. So, I mean, I will see them from time to time, but YouTube usually picks it up as spam because they'll use some word like fucking dick and shit or something. And then it goes into my spam box and they accuse me of deleting it. And I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. So, you know, that's just a voice that I do to just, you know, I'm having fun. I'm busting people's balls. I'm just teasing, you know, and, but yeah, sometimes people send me, and I appreciate the passion. I really do. But sometimes people send me long diatribes of, you know, without paragraphs, you know, and I'm just like, guys, I can't read this. Like, I don't have the time to read this, you know?
When you say I appreciate the passion, is that your way of saying some of you guys are fucking insane? Can we call it?
Well, actually, you know, no, because I do appreciate it. I mean, they're passionate about a movie they love. They don't like that I don't like it. But I think some people just need to take a breath and understand that it's not really that they don't like what I'm saying. It's that they don't like how I'm saying it. Yep. You know, so if I just said, I don't like Halloween 5, I wouldn't get any DMs. But if I go, Halloween 5 is dog shit. It's absolute. What the hell is, you think that's going to, and they look at that and they go, look at this pompous, arrogant, goddamn prick. I'm going to fucking message that bastard, you little son of a bitch. I'm going to get this. And that's what happens, right? When they don't understand that, you know, I mean, yes, but I'm overselling it for entertainment. You know, I'm trying to be theatrical because that's who I am, you know? So try not, take me seriously, but don't take me too seriously. I'm just having fun.
You got to do it though, Dave. Do your thing, man. One of Dave's things always is, but Dave, do
but
it.
Dave, yeah, it's
he'll say it all the time.
It's crazy.
He's like, I get in the he's like, he'll go, and I know in the comments you guys are gonna start going, but Dave, and
well, it's funny because people used to, when I first started the channel, I would preface a lot. I think I still do, depending on what I'm talking about. But I would get made fun of, not in a serious way, you know, like a teasing way, because I was fairly new, and people would be like, why are you like, why do you say like, generally speaking, or at the end of the day, or for all intents and purposes, or, you know, and I'm like, because if I don't, there's a lot of people, again, not so much anymore because I think people know how I operate. But in the beginning, like in 2017 and 18, I would get messages and comments from people completely taking my words out of, and I'm like, no, I don't mean literally, everybody. You know, I mean, I don't mean literally. And that's where you'll often, hear me talk about nuance and all that kind of stuff. But I guess when you're being theatrical and over the top, people can, it's dog shit. Well, not literally, it's just my way of saying I don't like it,
Well,
and so
isn't it great when they point out the things that we do all the time? I say it all the time, but I digress, and people bring that shit up to me all the time. And I'm like, I know I say it a lot. I don't even know I'm saying it. Leave me alone. So yeah, I mean, Christian, you have one of those things that you say a lot that people will be like, oh, this is Christian's thing.
Probably. I don't know what I say.
I can't think of it. No, I feel like you're pretty well spoken when you do yours. See, when I do videos, sometimes I just shoot from the hip most of the time. I don't take notes. I'm just going. And and I feel like Dave, you're probably very similar. I feel like, yeah, I think all three of us are, but for whatever it is, Christian, you're not, you just don't get as like tongue tied and animated as I might. And so, but yeah, I always say, but I digress, and people are like, they'll literally go in the comments.
If there's anybody that digresses, it's me. I mean, you know, I'm a talker, as your viewers can see on this show.
Oh, we all are. We both are. Christian and I have gone well over 2 hours before because we're just bullshit. So you're
amazing,
fine.
Now, Dave,
amazing.
You've got the two dudes and bullshit show you do, and it's like basically like I've watched. It's like a pod. You call it a podcast. Right.
Yeah. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I guess it's it's a podcast. Yeah. It's Tony, Michael, and I. Tony lives in Atlanta, and he was doing the Halloween shit back in 2017 and 18, and then he sort of got really busy and he wasn't able to keep up. And I met him through. I think I had seen he was live one day, and I just was chatting to him. He seemed like a nice guy, and we have similar tastes and interests, but we're also very opposites as well. And in some respects,
which makes for a good show. Yeah,
it makes for a good show, exactly. And so we thought, hey, let's do a show, talk about movies and stuff. And then that transitioned into a watch along, and now it's kind of half and half. We'll watch some movies, we'll talk about some stuff, and yeah, 153 episodes now, so it's it's great.
Did the pod doing the show like that for you? Like, just, you know what this has turned into for me, Dave? It's just, I'm so grumpy now. I just feel like when I do these podcasts, I just want to bitch and piss and moan and just get whatever I hate. I just got to let everybody. Does that kind of do that for you too, or do you kind of try to stop yourself and say, you know what, I got to keep an audience here?
It depends, you know, it depends if I can make it theatrical and funny. If there's something about it, you know, again, I actually do. I steer away obviously from the really hot topics like politics and all that kind of stuff and the shit going on in the world. But if there's something in entertainment that I, you know, like, well, for example, like the most recent Avatar video I did, right? I'm a big Avatar fan, unapologetically. And I knew putting that out there, but it's funny though. In the video, I say, I call out sort of the stereotypical Avatar responses, right? Dances with Wolves, Pocahontas, and I'm doing that, all this kind of stuff. Not one comment about that in the comment section. But there are people that are trying to tell me it's Pocahontas in space without trying to tell me it's Pocahontas in space because they don't want to, because they've been called out. So, you know, now they're like, well, it's just not original. And I just feel that it's kind of some movie in space. And I just, like, they don't want to kind of, you know, it's just funny. It's just funny. And I like to have fun that way too, because I know, you know, it's going to, you know, affect the audience. But again, I'm an actor, you know, I'm a performer, and I can't be on camera without doing that. You know, it's, and again, you know, you're not like that all the time, every 5 seconds, because there's no credibility there. But if there's some, you know, hot button thing, or, you know, there's a Halloween 5 thing or whatever, and yeah, it's fun to it's fun to get animated.
Yeah. And guys, we're not going to talk Halloween Ends because we could talk hours for Halloween Ends. You know, if you want to know Dave's thoughts and predictions on Halloween Ends, he has plenty of videos. He's done a lot of coverage on the movie on his channel, as have I. Christian and I have talked about it on the podcast. Obviously, that train is about to ramp up because if I had to guess, I don't have a source, but if I had to guess, that first trailer is probably going to be attached to the Black Phone at the end of June. I would think that would follow the formula, the end of June, beginning of July, dropping the first trailer. It's a Blumhouse horror movie. I think that makes sense, right? I
would say that that's a good bet. I would say that, yeah, I think it may drop before that. Like, you know, whenever the Black Phone is, say it's released on the Friday, you if it is going to be attached to the Black Phone, you may get the trailer on the Tuesday or something. That's entirely possible. What I'm curious about is if it's going to be the CinemaCon trailer that was shown there, or if it's going to be something new, because I think, although Halloween fans will eat up anything they can get their hands on, but if it is the CinemaCon trailer, which it could be, it could very well be that it's ready to go, it's locked, loaded, ready to go. I have a feeling that some fans may be disappointed because it's more of a, from what my understanding, it's more of a sort of it's a teaser, and most of the teaser is showing clips from past films.
Yep.
And then you get to the end where there's, I don't know, 30 seconds or something, or maybe even less, probably less, of this little battle with Michael and Laurie in the kitchen, and then that's it. So it doesn't really show anything to Halloween Ends.
And wouldn't you guys love that? Yeah.
I would, yes, for sure.
The past 2 marketing campaigns, it would be
exactly
the opposite.
And then people will be dissecting that kitchen scene. Although one thing I will say is interesting that I'm surprised, maybe you guys have talked about it, but I haven't heard anybody talk about it. When the transcript of what was released at CinemaCon came out, there was a big focus on what does Michael Myers' mask look like? What does the mask look like? What does the mask look like? What does the mask look like? And people talking about, do you think that happens at the beginning of the movie? Do you think that that's just them fighting at the beginning, or do you think that's later in the movie? And I sat there and I thought to myself, well, what the hell was Laurie wearing? Who cares about the mask? Because if Laurie is wearing the same getup she wore at the end of Kills, well, then that probably is, the prologue. And that's her, maybe that fight scene takes place in the Myers house kitchen. I don't know. What is she wearing? There's this focus on the mask, but he wears the same thing all the time. What is she wearing? And there is somebody I could reach out to and ask, because he was at CinemaCon, but it's been a month and a bit now or something like that. I don't know if he would remember. I should have asked him right when it was released, because he may have remembered. But that's what I find interesting. So I just have a feeling that I'm going to love it if they don't show too much, but I have a feeling because we have all in our minds, we already know of that teaser. If that is the one that is released, it'll be great to see it, because wow, we can see this fight. Ooh, oh, that's kind of cool. But it might be disappointing for some, because I think that because there's been nothing of this movie, the teaser trailer will ultimately also give you nothing, Yeah. So I think some fans will be disappointed if they decide to go with that.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, we will talk about this topic ad nauseum as the months go on all of our channels, I'm sure, and people are going to get more than their fill of Halloween Ends stuff, but
for sure,
we don't want to speculate too much. I just will say one thing. Christian reached out to me right before Kills came out, about a week before Kills came out. He goes, dude, have you ever really looked into the lyrics for Hunter's Moon? And I'm like, no, I haven't really looked at them. He's like, dude, these lyrics are really making me think we're going to get some gnarly shit in this movie. And then I go through the lyrics, and it's like, he's talking about coming home and his sister and the gravestone and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, where my mind went? He's going to dig Judith up. He's going to dig her body up. He's going to take the headstone again and put it in the bedroom. There's so many things there. I just want to know really quick from you, Dave. What do you think this explanation is going to be? Because we're going to get one, and whether we want to or not, we're going to get some kind of, even if it's a loose explanation of this is kind of his driving force. Where do you even pontificate they would go with that?
Well, it's difficult because fans tend to read a lot into things. It's difficult to know what is hyperbole and what is, for marketing to build things up. And what is, because fans tend to take things very literally. That's just the world we live in nowadays, right? A movie is either a 10 out of 10 or it's 0. There's no nuance anymore. I could give a movie a 7 out of 10 and somebody could say, oh, I guess you didn't like it. I'm like, what do you mean I didn't like it? It was 7 out of 10. It's a fantastic score. 7 out of 10. That's great.
7 out of 10.
But it's not 10. You know what I mean? Yeah. So fans take to, when somebody asks Jason Blum on Twitter, when is the Halloween Ends trailer coming? And Jason Blum says soon, and people lose their minds over it. I just roll my eyes.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. I because he said that 6 weeks ago and we don't have the trailer, but people take it like, oh my God. There's something I always call political cinematic rhetoric. And it's just stuff that producers say and filmmakers say and studio executives say or statements they release, public sort of formal statements that isn't lying. It's not lying, but it's you know, it's poetic sometimes, and it's kind of just trying to just to shut people up, you know. And he's not wrong. Whether it comes out tomorrow or 2 months from now, he's right. It's soon. So, you know, try not to read so much into it. So I think fans tend to read a lot into, you know, these statements of it's going to make you angry. And I've talked about it on my channel. It's going to make you angry. It's going to do this. But, you know, reflecting on it, Jamie Lee Curtis also said that Halloween Kills was a masterpiece. And so
it's a fucking masterpiece, Dave.
Yeah, you know, her job, she's an executive producer. Her job is to, and I'm not saying she doesn't truly believe that, but you know, some of these things can be hyperbole, and some of these things can be said for the effect and to keep you know, to keep the hype going, right? You know, oh maybe, oh I don't know, soon, oh you never know, and people go, ooh, you know, it's like adults talking to children, you know, and you know, you don't lie, but you know, you play a game, and you try to keep the feelers out there and keep the hype up and keep the mystery and the mystique going, and because that's what it's all about. It's marketing. It's a form of marketing, and so. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but to answer your question, I think it would be a mistake, first and foremost, to reveal anything about Michael Myers.
Agreed.
His whole identity is built around the you know, this idea of an enigma, the mystique, the ambiguity, the mystery. That is who Michael Myers is. The not knowing the why, I think, is built into his DNA, at least the original intent of the character. Obviously, when part 2 came around, that was thrown out the window, and then 4 and 5 and 6, and you know, but when you say you're going back to the original intent of the character, there's reasons why you're doing that. There's a reason why you eliminated all of the garbage, you know, sequels. John Carpenter, and I quote, when he was asked during the press junkets for Halloween 18, so why did you decide to kind of remove all the sequels and blah, blah, blah? He goes, have you seen them? You know, that's what he said on the, I mean, you know, have you seen them? Implying they're dog shit, you know? So why would you then go back and implement a motive of some sort or a reason, which is part of the reason why you went back to do this movie in the first place, is to negate all that. I don't think it's necessary. And I think that Michael works best. He has a shelf life. The foundation of the character was built around that. And it's the mystique is what keeps us fans so enamored with this character, the why, because we always feel like, even subconsciously, we're on the cusp of knowing that why. Now, you can have the characters in the movie, you can have them contemplating about it, talking about it. Why do you think he's doing it? And maybe, you know, it feels like the character are, you know, they're on the cusp of knowing, and oh my God, we're going to know. But ultimately, we as the audience should never, ever know. It should never be revealed. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that, to your point, Nick, that isn't the thing that might make people angry. But it could be. It could be. And I just hope that it isn't.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed that they don't go too far off the deep end there, because again, if the intent is to make the true follow-ups to the original movie, well then Michael is a shape with no motive, and he's just evil, and that's just what he is. And the more you try to explain him, although I know today's audiences seem to need to be spoon-fed everything, or at least Hollywood thinks that audiences need that, but we don't actually need that shit. So
correct.
You know, but again, I'm going to use my line, I digress. So, Christian, you know, we're wrapping up here. I want to say, first and foremost, thank you so much for coming on to here, Dave. I mean,
no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
It's been very insightful. I mean, I've watched you for years, so you know, it's been really cool to be able to talk to you and bounce things off of you and just get an insight into your life. And I didn't want to talk too much about. I wanted to talk more about you, because we wanted to bring you on here so people that may not know you now can be introduced to you and get a little insight into your life. Even though, if you guys really want to know more, Dave is very open on his channel about a lot of his experiences in the industry, just in life. So there's always, I just want to say, Dave, let people know, where can they find you at?
Well, they can find me. I mean, if you just YouTube Dave McRae, McRae is McRae. I think I pop up. I think I don't know if I'm the only one, but I think when you YouTube my name, I'm the channel that pops up. And you can follow me on Twitter at The Voice Man. Man has 2 N's. The reason for that is because it was my website for voiceover is thevoiceman.com. And when I was getting that site 15 years ago or whatever it was, the voice man with 1 N was taken. So I just added an extra N and there you go. So there's really no reason for the extra N. But anyway, on Twitter, I'm at the voice man with 2 N's. On Instagram, I'm Dave McRae 79, I believe. And on Facebook, it's Many Things Dave McRae. I do have a personal Facebook account, but I don't add people I don't know. That's just for, personal friends, family, things like that. The Many Things Dave McRae page is if you follow me there, I post there all the time. So, and then, website, thevoiceman.com. And, I think that's it.
Christian, I want to ask you really quick. Well, I want to say we've had Piz Owl on here many times. Piz Owl's a good friend of Christian's, and then obviously someone I've watched forever. And then Lee, Drum Dums. Obviously, I know you know Lee. We've had him on
for
here
sure
a number of times. So we would. I think I speak for both of us. Would you agree, Christian? I would absolutely love to have Dave on here again, especially after Halloween Ends comes out. I think that would be
it'd be great.
Something would be great to talk about. But Christian, is there anything you got for Dave before we head out this time?
I think honestly, a lot of the stuff I wanted to know about was like the physicality of doing the voiceover work and things like that. And Dave got into that. That's cool. And he taught me about how to get in shape. So like, dude, And look, let's be real.
Well, I mean,
Dave is a pro.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. There's me. I mean, really, it's
Dave knows the business. He knows they want to hear him talk about Halloween too.
Yeah, no.
I love talking about Halloween.
And they want to hear him talk. They go, yeah, Nick, Christian, we listen to you every fucking week. Oh, you got Dave McRae on here. All right, you guys shut up. Like, so yeah, but to our listeners, we hope you guys really enjoyed this. Again, follow Dave, subscribe to Dave if you haven't, although you're living under a rock if you're listening to us and you haven't heard of Dave. I mean, come on now. So it was our pleasure, and we're very, very thankful to have had you on here, and hopefully it's something we can do again.
For sure. I really appreciate the invitation and you reaching out. This was fun. This was a lot of fun. And I think you guys are great. I think you guys handled the interview well and you got great chemistry. And I really appreciate it. I'd have no issues coming on again.
Awesome. That's awesome to hear, because I was going to say one last thing. I was genuinely worried when I sent you a message. I was like, Christian and I talk about it sometimes. I was like, I hope he doesn't big league me, but I would get it if he did. If he was like, yeah, but then, I've seen Dave on other people's channels and I'm like, no, Dave seems like the type of guy that would do that. I know you're probably a pretty busy person, as most of us just nowadays are. So it's just like, I'm hoping. And then Christian's like, you heard from him? I'm like, nah, we'll have to think of something else to do. And then Dave messages. I'm like, oh, well, hell yeah, this is great. So it's nice. They say don't meet your heroes, but they're not all assholes. So,
I'm flattered. I'm flattered. Yeah. I will say that, I do get a lot of messages from a lot of people. And I always say that obviously I can't respond to everybody. But if you don't hear from me, if you don't hear from me, you just may not hear from me, but it's never personal. Obviously it's never personal. It's not like, oh, I'm too big and important to respond. It's not that. It's just that I get a lot of messages. And that's why I always say to people that it's a lot easier to, don't send me a message that's like this, send me a message like, hey, it's a lot easier. And the reason why it took me a bit to get back to you is because it was on Instagram. And I always forget to check messages on Instagram. And sometimes I go over and there's like tons of them. I'm like, oh God, where do I begin? I don't know, thank you. Oh, that's great. Me too. Like, I just don't, there's so many. So my apologies if people have messaged me on Instagram and you haven't heard from me. It's never personal. It's just, to my surprise, I get a lot. I get a lot more than I thought I was going to.
And you got a life. You got a busy life, man. You got a lot going on.
It's true. No, and that's fair enough. And it is true. It is true. I do have things going on and things like that. But when I saw your message, come in, or when I saw it not come in, but when I saw it, I clicked on it and I was like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem. This is a lot of fun, sure.
Yeah, I actually discovered the Slaughtered Lamb podcast because you had been on there. So when I watch your videos, every now and then it would suggest one of those that you did with them. And then I look and I go, well, they got a channel that's the size of mine, 2,000 some subscribers, haven't really been doing this regularly. I've had the channel since 2009, but I just recently, a year ago, really started to upload. So, yeah, so I was like, I figured, why not? And guess what? Dave is a good guy, and we appreciate him being on here. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're watching on YouTube or on the audio platforms, everything like that, we really do appreciate it. Again, Dave, thank you for your time, your insight into the industry, a little bit about your life, and then we just had to spend most of the time talking about Halloween because that's just what we do, I guess. Yes,
of course, 100%. Well, again, thank you for having me on, and to all your listeners out there, thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Uneeda Horror Podcast. You need it, we got it. Thank you for listening.